Welcome to Fantastic History. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Clay.
We're a husband and wife duo who enjoy telling each other about amazing events, people, and mysteries throughout history. Obviously, I am sick. Not doing great. It sounds worse than it is. But that used to be one of the main tropes of the podcast, is that like I was always sick.
Yeah,
so
it happens.
I think honestly we should be celebrating.
Yeah.
The fact that like it's been at least 10 episodes since I was violently ill. So today I have a story for you that I really should be saving for Halloween.
Oh.
But it's just like, it's so nutso butso and so out there the way that all the information culminates. Like I have to talk about it right away.
I'm excited.
So today we're going to be talking about a Revolutionary War era zombie.
Okay.
And no, this is not another one of my weird history fanfics. This is a totally 100% true story.
True story?
True story.
Okay.
All right. So let's start at the beginning with the birth of William Thornton in the British Virgin Islands on May 20th, 1759. His family were Quakers, as was everyone in their community. Also, just to put it out there, they were also plantation owners. They were slaves.
Yeah.
So don't want to just pretend that didn't happen, because it did. For those who don't know, like, what the Quakers are besides the oatmeal guy, they're a sect of Protestant Christianity known for their emphasis on peaceful values, social equality, and the belief that there's like that of God in everyone. Like everybody's got a little bit of God's light in their heart. And you should be nice to people because of it.
Okay. All right.
Cool. Seems like a pretty chill group, if I'm honest. Like,
all things considered, especially for the time, sure.
Right. So from a very young age, William was interested in design and architecture. He was showing so much promise from such a young age that his parents sent him back to their hometown of Lancaster, England, so he could get his education when he was 5 years old.
5? Man, kids were different back then, weren't they?
Literally. He was like already like so good at architecture. Now, our kid can build a mean tower.
Yeah.
Great at building towers with all different type of building materials. I would not send him halfway across the globe for specialty education at his current age.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. He wanted to use his talents to pursue a career in the fine arts, but that was simply not the done thing with the Quakers. Like, their whole deal is learning useful, practical skills that support and build up the community as a whole.
Sure. Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, artists probably aren't making a ton of money in the British Virgin Islands also. It's probably not a prosperous career in that specific, like where they live, right?
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, he finished his formal education at the age of 18, like pretty normal, like standard amount of time to be in school there if you're a dude. After that, he started a 4-year apprenticeship with a primary care physician who also ran an apothecary. And what's going to be more useful to the Quakers back home than a doctor? Like, it almost doesn't get more practical than that. So, like,
absolutely.
Good job, Bill. After finishing his apprenticeship, Thornton did not immediately head back home to the Virgin Islands, though. Instead, he spent the next few years traveling around Europe, which was like actually really, really uncommon at the time to take like your gap year and go backpacking. Like, and especially for a Quaker, like who are, they're very practical, like down to earth, like living with the land, whatever.
Sure.
During his travels, he studied medicine at the University of Edinburgh, which was like basically the Harvard med school of its day. Even though medicine was not his original passion, he still threw himself into his studies. At one point, he wrote a dissertation on human reproduction, which was pretty progressive for the time. I imagine that did not go over super well with his conservative Quaker community. Like, hey guys, check out my detailed paper about how babies are made. Did you know?
Very scandalous.
What's particularly interesting about his time in Edinburgh is that it happened right in the middle of the Scottish Enlightenment. He was surrounded by revolutionary thinkers who were challenging traditional views on everything from science to politics. And this had a profound impact on the way he saw the world, especially considering that he was raised in such a conservative religious environment that's like kind of an insular community.
Yeah.
But our guy William couldn't seem to shake that architecture bug. And he spent just as much time sketching buildings and studying European design as he did learning how to treat dysentery. So he never, like, that passion never went away just because he feels like he's not able to pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
He was also becoming quite the accomplished painter and artist, skills that would later help him translate his architectural visions to paper. After his European adventures, Thornton finally returned to the Virgin Islands in 1786, but he did not stay for long. Instead, he packed up and moved to the United States, where he became a citizen in 1788.
All right.
I mean, that is like great timing. The war is over. The ink is barely dry on the Constitution.
Yep.
We're brand new. Like, we're getting after it. America.
Get in.
Peak America. Now, before we go any further, I should mention something about Thornton that makes him pretty remarkable for his time. And like I kind of touched on it a little bit a second ago. Despite growing up in a slaveholding family in the Virgin Islands, he became a vocal abolitionist. I'm sure his Quaker upbringing played a big role in that because Quakers were among the earliest and most consistent opponents of slavery in America.
Okay.
Now, he was not such a staunch abolitionist that he abstained from owning slaves himself, but he did free them in his will, and he did fuss at everybody else for doing it. So, like, he did like the Thomas Jefferson playbook, where he's like, nobody should have slaves. Be quiet back there. Don't tell them you're here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have the slaves, but I'm more enlightened than these other folks.
Like, I'm actually being nice to them. Like, don't worry about it.
Right.
So there's that. But Thornton was also active in the American Colonization Society, which worked to resettle freed slaves back in Africa. It's like finding them places to go back to their home country and not just like leaving them there, but like setting them up with a life and helping them to kind of get back to their people.
Yeah.
This actually led to the founding of Liberia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like I had never heard that before. So like at some point, I mean, like Liberia has its own complicated legacy, but like that could be something we could definitely look into later if there is interest. The founding of Liberia.
Yeah.
Freed slaves. Now, here's where Thornton's story really finally gets going. In 1789, he submitted a design for the United States Capitol building in a competition held by Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson. And guess what? He won.
He won?
This Quaker doctor turned architect with no formal architectural training designed one of the most iconic buildings in America.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the inside, like, I don't know if you've ever been inside the Capitol building, but like it is a work of art. Like the rotunda is gorgeous. Like every bit of it, like, is so detailed, so thoughtful. And this was some guy who like studied dysentery and how to make babies.
That's pretty crazy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely not what you would expect. But his design was praised for being simple, noble, beautiful, excellently distributed, and moderate in size. Like,
yes, moderate.
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. It's just the cutest little, it's twee.
Yes.
And Thornton wasn't just a one-hit wonder with beginner's luck either. George Washington was so impressed with his talents that he appointed him as one of the first commissioners of Washington, D.C. in 1794.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're like, you killed it on this one. What else can you do to like make the rest of the city look cool?
Right.
Washington himself picked him. Great. Later, when the patent office was first established, Thornton became its first superintendent, which is the position he held until his death in 1828. This wasn't just some cushy government job that he coasted through either. Like, he was absolutely fascinated by invention and innovation, which I feel like from everything we've heard about him, you would expect that. He personally evaluated patent applications, applying both his medical and architectural knowledge to assess new technologies. During his 25-year tenure at the patent office, he worked with some of America's most famous inventors, including Robert Fulton, who developed the first commercially successful steamboat. Which, like, I only included that bit of information because it's crazy to me to think that steamboats have been around for that long.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very old-fashioned type of engine. Steam, right?
It is, but, like, I always picture, like, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Like, I always picture, like, Mark Twain being on a steamboat. So for somebody who, like, knew Washington and Jefferson... to be approving the patent for the steamboat, it just kind of like it messed with me a little bit.
I get it. Do you associate it a little bit more with like conquering the West?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's got stagecoach vibes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories about Thornton's time in the patent office happened during the War of 1812. When British forces invaded Washington and set fire to many government buildings, Thornton reportedly rushed in back and forth as many times as he could to save as many patent models that he could grab before flames utterly destroyed the building.
Wow.
And like at this point, he was in his mid-50s, running into a burning building in the middle of the night to like rescue other people's like brain treasure.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Now, like, he's also impressive in, like, some other ways. He's multilingual. He was a member of the American Philosophical Society, which is basically, like, the 18th century equivalent of, like, being in the Cool Science Club.
Oh, the Cool Science Club,
The Cool Science Club. It was founded by Benjamin Franklin. It was, like, the intellectual society of early America. So I'm saying all of this so that you'll have a context for the fact that he is not a crackpot. Like, he's not a crazy person. He's very intelligent. At this point, you're probably like, great, but I don't give a shit. Like, you promised me zombies.
That's true.
Where are the gruesome undead? Like, what is happening? For that, let's talk a little bit more about George Washington. Have you heard of him?
Yes, he was the president of the United States.
He's the dollar bill guy.
Yeah.
And the quarter guy.
He's the money fella.
Yes, he's that one. On December 14th, 1799, Washington fell ill after riding around his Mount Vernon estate during a snowstorm. Because apparently no one told him that 67-year-old men should not be like gallivanting around in freezing weather.
At least put your hat on.
Now, I do want to take a moment to say I chose the word gallivanting very intentionally. Because, like, today we hear that word and it was like silly shenanigans, you're running amok, whatever. But, like, the origin of gallivanting is, like, you're out there being a little promiscuous. You out there running around. And there's no proof that that's what George Washington was doing. But there's quite a lot of, like, unsubstantiated rumor that he was out in the cold climbing out of some other man's wife's window.
In a snowstorm?
I'm just repeating what I've heard. The man was gallivanting, but like definition TBD.
Oh my God, Martha.
We've talked about poor Martha. She looked like a ghost. Anyway, his condition worsened rapidly, and the medical treatment he received was like very 18th century. Leeches.
Oh.
They put some kind of caustic acid on his skin and like gave him like acidic burns.
What?
Just like all this different, like trying to revive this man. Like maybe if we burn him to death, he'll jump up and start going, eep. Like, I don't know.
Was his Dr. Patrick Starr?
That would explain actually a lot. And I do think that makes William Thornton SpongeBob.
Okay.
I do. So within 48 hours, Washington dead as fuck.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Likely from a combination of acute bacterial epiglottis and the excessive bloodletting performed by his doctors.
The bloodletting, thank God they stopped doing that, because it turns out you need that.
You need that. Well, and especially if they drain 5 pints of blood from you in less than 16 hours, which is what they did to Washington. And for reference, the average adult body only contains about 10 pints. They took half the shit out.
That's not the way to do it.
It's not great doctoring. It's
No.
honestly just not.
It's poor work.
The nation was devastated. This is the equivalent of like if Beyonce and Taylor Swift died on the same day. It's like that level of hysteria and just like people losing their minds, like in the streets, wailing, rending garments.
It was Washington.
It's George fucking Washington. Like everybody credits him with the fact that this is even a country. Like,
yeah.
And especially back then, he was a war hero in addition to being the president and like being so noble and stepping down and but I mean, we've all heard Hamilton.
Yes.
So, not a great day. People were inconsolable, including his friend, William Thornton.
Sure.
But Thornton, being both a doctor and a man with what we might charitably call unique ideas, didn't just mourn like everyone else. Oh no, he had a plan.
A plan?
A resurrection plan.
What?
By the time Thornton arrived at Mount Vernon, Washington had been dead for several hours. But that did not stop him from proposing something that sounds like it's straight out of a gothic horror novel. He suggested, like he worked all this out on the ride there. He's like, I got to get my boy back. I'm going to figure this out. Don't worry, Martha. I've got this. So he suggested that they could bring him back to life through a combination of techniques that included thawing the body by the fire, rubbing it vigorously with blankets soaked in warm water, performing a tracheotomy to introduce air into the lungs, transfusing lamb's blood into his body to replace all the blood that they took out. But it has to be lamb. Can't be sheep. Can't be goat. Has to be lamb's blood. And I swear to God, I'm not making this up. The last step was using bellows to pump air into his lungs through the tracheotomy hole.
Okay.
Like I just
Sounds perfectly reasonable. I thought you were going to say something crazy.
I know, right? But like, let's just like let it sink in. Like William Thornton, the designer of the United States Capitol, wanted to perform what amounts to a Frankenstein-esque procedure on the body of George Washington to bring him back from the dead.
Yeah, Robo Washington.
That would have been a much smarter idea. I feel like Jefferson could have pulled it off.
They could have put his head on a steam engine body.
Dude. Oh, William fucked it. It was all right there.
He was so close. I'm assuming that though that this had ill consequences.
I mean, it had no consequences because they would not let him do it.
Oh.
Obviously. I'm pretty sure we would have all heard about it by now if like everyone in that room had not been, sir, get the fuck out of here. You are wild with grief. You have clearly lost your mind. Like all of the other attending physicians were like, get out. You are too sad. It has made you crazy. But like, can you imagine? It's like this would have been the equivalent, like dead ass, if Frank Lloyd Wright had showed up at JFK's funeral with half this man's head blown off, with a modified bagpipe and a bucket of blood from the butcher shop down the way. It's that crazy. Like, it is that ridiculous, right? My God.
Wow, that's a great... That's a good one.
It's a lot to deal with. Like, what's most fascinating about it? Well, it's hard to say what's most fascinating about it, but like I was saying before, like he's not just some quack. He's not a fringe lunatic even.
Yeah.
He was a highly educated physician by the standards of his day and one of the most respected men in the entire nation at that time. He had access to George Washington's home and his dead body within hours of his death. Like, this is not just some random.
Oh, man.
But here he is essentially proposing necromancy.
Yeah.
As Washington begins to decay before his very eyes.
If only.
Oh, my God. Now, to be fair to Thornton here, because we are dunking on him a little bit, Experiments with and interests in resuscitation were all the rage. Like that was starting to become very popular in scientific circles at this time.
Yeah.
Mary Shelley would publish Frankenstein just 19 years later, inspired in part by real scientific experiments with reviving dead tissue.
Huh.
So while Thornton's proposal seems like absolutely bonkers to us now, it wasn't completely out of step with cutting edge medical thinking of that time.
Yeah, and at least he was trying to do like real stuff instead of like, let's sacrifice a baby and hope that the gods bring him back to us.
Or like, let's take out half of his blood and see if that does anything.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, his idea was obviously didn't make sense to us now, but the stuff they were doing to him to cure him was just as wild.
It was garbage. I mean, we don't know that this wouldn't have worked.
Well,
frankly, there's no proof that it wouldn't have worked because they didn't try it. They didn't let him follow through on the experiment.
That's true. He was dead for hours, but
we know that what those guys were doing did not work because that fool was dead.
That's true.
I cannot help but wonder, as I'm sure you cannot help but wonder, how different American history might have been if he had been allowed to go through with it. Like, would we have constitutional amendments dealing specifically with the undead?
Well, no, because he would not have been dead.
But he would be undead.
Yeah, but I mean...
No. He would have been undead. He would have been a zombie. He was dead for several hours. Okay. Now he's back alive. He is basically a Frankenstein monster.
Okay.
He needs rights.
That's true.
And once he has those rights, is he going to turn Mount Vernon into a mad scientist layer?
Are you allowed to feed almost said Frankenstein. Are you allowed to feed Washington brains?
Okay, because that's my most important question. Would zombie Washington have been able to eat brains efficiently with those busted ass crazy ass dentures?
Probably not.
I mean, my God. And if you guys don't know about the dentures, please go back and listen to our episode over a year ago where I talked about like crazy presidential facts. It was right after my brother Michael passed away. So it would have been December before last. Go back and look for that episode because his dentures, girl. Oh my God, you've never heard of anything like it. They are not wooden teeth. It is so much worse than that.
Yeah, we've done episodes. We've done actually a lot of episodes. Maybe not a lot. We've done a few episodes on Washington.
But not specifically on his dentures.
Not specifically on his dentures, no.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we'll never know because Washington remained really most sincerely dead.
Man.
And I know. They wouldn't even let the man try it. He was interred at Mount Vernon, where his body remains to this day, as far as we know.
As far as we know?
As far as prove it.
On foggy nights.
William Thornton, for his part, continued to serve his adopted country for the rest of his life, never again proposing experimental resurrection procedures for deceased national heroes.
What a shame.
He peaked in 1799 and he was like, you know what, I'm not going to top it. I'm just going to back at the patent office.
Well, I am a little disappointed because I was sure that that the story was going to go, he couldn't get his hands on Washington. But when John Adams died...
Dude, I know.
They were like, we don't care, just take him.
Yeah, fuck that guy. With that little tiny guy that's sick all the time. Girl, he's been dead for years.
Yeah, well, just stick a donkey in the casket. No one's going to even check. Do whatever you want to do with them.
At the end of the day, like, I do think there's something like oddly beautiful about the whole story, but like, I guess I would as a professional ghoul. Like, it's a reminder that even our founding fathers and the brilliant minds who built our nation, at the end of the day, were completely and entirely batshit crazy.
It's true.
Everyone in charge has always been out of their fucking minds.
Well, especially when you think about how old a lot of our founding fathers were at the time. I mean, this aside.
Sure.
Because people are just weird, no matter what, as you said.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like during the Revolution. They were very young.
Oh, yeah.
And, you think, oh, they're old men who are fighting the war. No, they're just young men just flying by the seat of the pants.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently that involves crazy science experiments.
How does science progress if we're not trying new things?
It's wild.
I know. Well, thanks for tuning in and giving us a little bit of your time today. Hopefully you learned something new. I cannot imagine you did not.
It's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
If you did, please take a second to leave a review and a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you use. Connect with us on Instagram and Threads at Fantastic HPod or on YouTube and TikTok at Fantastic History Podcast. If you'd like to send a message or you have ideas for future episodes, you can direct your emails to fantastichistorypod@gmail.com. Until next time, brave.